Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Big Ten Mafia Show, part of the College Football Mafia. I'm your host, Sergeant Pickles, and with me today is the fantastic Moen, Mr. Buckeye. How we doing, Moen?
Doing good. Big weekend in Big Ten football. Ready to talk about it and take a look at next week's big slate of games. But huge games this week in the Big Ten. We had some wins, we had some losses, we had some head scratchers.
Yes, indeed. And Becky had some work engagement things. She may be able to join us a little later on, but the show must go on. We appreciate everyone being here. First in the house, Timothy Green, ready for another great show. Absolutely. Skaven, yes, hello indeed. Daniel Gygax, your West Virginia Mountaineers rebounded, and it is Backyard Brawl Week. Absolutely. Please check out the Big 12 Mafia show coming. They're going to have a full preview of all the Big 12 games, including the Backyard Brawl. Bob Swinger, good evening. And Illini Ted, cheers to you, my friend. Big Illini win this weekend. We'll get to that in a bit. So starting off, Moen, it was, I would say, a weekend of mixed results. Some good, some bad, some so-so, but go ahead and throw them up there and we'll recap it starting at the top.
All right, first on the board is that Indiana win against Western Illinois. I spoke a little bit about this. I don't like the fact they ran the score up. I think when you hit 50, you take your foot off the gas. I understand that Kurt Signetti is trying to build some excitement for that team, but I am not a fan of running up the score on Western Illinois. There was no reason for that to take place.
Yeah. Do we have any context if they polled and it was just second and third stringers putting up points, or did it appear the starting units were still out?
It was not. I think in the third quarter they still had starting units in there. But I mean, Ohio State pulled their starters after they were up 49. It was a fluke touchdown that a missed tackle that ended up causing the Ohio State game to go to 56. So
yeah, the Huskies.
There's no style points left in college football. I'm not a fan of running it up on a team that you know is inferior.
Yeah, I think the expanded playoff, thankfully, has actually diminished the reason to run the score up and do these strength of victory type deals. I mean, the Huskies took the foot off the gas midway through the third quarter, up 30-6. You know, there's no reason to beat up on these like on a power team. You maybe don't run it up on them, but you're still playing hard because that's going to be a solid win. But yeah, FCS opponent, it's a little much. But Indiana still big win for them. You know, they showed that they got the offensive firepower. We'll see if it carries on into Big Ten play. And next on, I caught a little bit of this one. This had some Pac-12 after dark vibes, Mo, and the old Nerd Bowl, Duke Northwestern, and the fumble. What is it? The fumble bunny. I saw it trending online. This was an absolutely bizarre game. Weird things happening, and Northwestern looked to be in pretty good shape, and then a bunch of really strange things started happening.
Yeah, it ended up going to double overtime, or single overtime, I'm sorry. Really, they were doing so well for themselves. Yep. They had ran up the middle successfully for 9 yards. They had a short one to go, and then the OC calls a quarterback sweep. Quarterback sweep lost yards, went from a short one to a long three, and unfortunately, Northwestern could not finish it. Northwestern could have easily won this game, scoring a touchdown and successfully converting the 2-point conversion. Just bad play calling by the offensive coordinator there. I don't understand the logic of that. You've run up the middle successfully for 9 yards. You've got 2 downs to get less than 1 yard. Just run it up the middle twice, if you need to.
Yeah, it was pretty head scratching, especially going toward the overtime. It looked like Northwestern they were playing to not lose. They weren't really playing to win at the end there, and it was kind of baffling to me.
Yeah, it was a tough environment, though. I don't know if you saw the wind whipping.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough kicking field goals. Yeah, it's going to be tough kicking field goals in that stadium, that temporary stadium they built.
I'm quite thankful that Northwestern comes to Seattle in week 4 rather than the other way around.
Oh, you're lucky.
Yep.
Because playing Northwestern, you get some weird ones.
Yep.
Next one, we've got Ohio State play Western Michigan. Again, this game shouldn't be 56-0. It should be 49-0. Towards the fourth quarter, Julian Sion went in. They let him throw, I think, 2 passes. He was only in for, I think, 2 plays or something like that. And, he threw a touchdown pass. It was just a blown coverage by Western Michigan that led to that touchdown. So, Will Howard looked good. Chip Kelly ran a lot of RPO in that game.
That's it. That's his MO.
Yeah, running Will Howard out and then letting him dump the ball off. Judkins and Henderson both look very good. I believe they both got at least 1 touchdown each. They may have had 2 touchdowns each. Jeremiah Smith continues to be the most impressive freshman in college football. He looks like he's NFL draft ready at this point, and he's only played 2 games. So I know Rock and Rant wasn't real happy with it because they were trying to lure that kid to Miami. But he's a Buckeye, and we're glad to have him.
And we'll finally get to the banner game for the entire weekend, College Game Day, and much anticipated. You can imagine that the Wolverines were cautiously optimistic and talking trash with Texas fans. And this is the national championship matchup that the Washington Huskies denied the nation. And unfortunately for Big Ten fans, or fortunately if you're on the Buckeye train, Michigan got it absolutely handed to them by the Fighting Sarkeesians.
Yeah, this game wasn't even as close as the score indicates. Texas took their foot off the gas in pretty much halftime. They did get a score in the third quarter, but Michigan got absolutely dominated in the trenches. One thing I noticed Sarkisian did was good. When they had Michigan had both their starting DTs in, Mason Graham and the other one, he would not run up the middle. He'd run it to the perimeter, tire those guys out. As soon as, the play after they took him out of the game, they'd run right down the middle and were just gashing them. So that could be a blueprint. Those backup defensive tackles need to get more seasoned because Texas kind of gave everybody the blueprint on how to effectively run against that Michigan defensive line.
Yeah, still supremely talented at Michigan, but there's definitely been a drop-off. They lost some guys to the NFL, and, I see a lot of people scapegoating Sharon Moore, but I think the drop-off in talent would have been the same with Harbaugh. So he's got to put together a solid Big Ten run here. Otherwise, I don't know if people are calling for his job already, but it's not a good look. As you said, they weren't competitive in that game at all. This isn't like Texas pulled away late. They were sprinting from the start, and Michigan never really got going.
Yeah, the Michigan's main problem is the quarterback situation. They went from J.J. McCarthy to Warren and Orgy, and I don't think either one of them comes close to J.J. McCarthy. So I think you stick with Warren, but I think you have to scheme to his strengths a little more. And you got Donovan Edwards. Just run Donovan Edwards. I don't know. He was getting some decent runs there. I don't know what the situation was, but Texas was just dominating in the trenches, defensively, offensively. That offensive line for Texas pushed Michigan around. Their defensive line got pressure. That's where Michigan's success was last year on the lines, and they don't have it this year.
Yeah, without the threat of the pass, though, even a back as talented as Donovan Edwards, that's what made Michigan successful last year, is that McCarthy wasn't a flashy quarterback, but he did just enough to keep teams honest, and they could just gash you on the ground. So we will see if Michigan can adjust going forward, but Illini's head calling it. He doesn't think Michigan will be top 25 much longer. I don't know their upcoming schedule, but they got Washington week 6, and it's going to be tough. I believe they play Oregon also. It's going to be tough sledding here.
They've got USC on the 21st, I believe. I don't know. We'll have to look at next week's schedule to see if they play next week. They might have a bye this week. Ohio State has a bye this week, but I know on the 21st, a week from this Saturday, they've got USC coming into the Big House.
Yep. There's quite a few teams on bye this week, so it's going to be kind of an interesting one. And moving right on down, our friend Earl Carr mentions what the heck is going on with Oregon. Struggled the first 2 games and almost lost both. Yeah. the hype train is not come to a grinding halt, but it's certainly slowed down a tick because, everyone expected Oregon to be the Oregon of old, high flying, big scoring, and some fast defense. And they have all of those ingredients, but for whatever reason, Lanning hasn't been able to put it together, and he's allowing an FCS team, and granted a, G5 playoff spot contender in Boise State. They were ahead going into the third. So it wasn't, I don't know what adjustments he made other than they just started using the athleticism that they have, and their defense finally stepped up. But Oregon's got reason to be concerned.
Yeah, Boise State. If Boise State had a special teams coordinator that had any ability at all,
yep,
they probably would have won that game. 14 points off of a punt return and a kick return touchdown. And that was the difference.
There was a lot of debate on that return for a touchdown, the kickoff all the way back, because they confirmed he dropped the ball going into the end zone, and everyone was losing their minds. But an Oregon player then picked it up in the end zone. That was not made clear on the broadcast. So
yeah,
Boise would have gotten it back had they had the foresight to grab it from him. But yeah, just a little bit of discipline on special teams from Boise, because their defense was doing just enough. And I don't know what the deal is with Dylan Gabriel, that they can't use him to his fullest potential, but these checkdowns for 5 yards aren't going to get it done against some of these better teams and better defenses. So Oregon definitely has some adjustments to be made. And in a similar vein to Oregon, kind of slow start and squeaking out the finish, what on earth was Penn State doing against Bowling Green, especially in comparison to how well they played at West Virginia? Mo, try and explain to me what the match.
I think maybe it was an emotional letdown game, that they were so up for that West Virginia win that they overlooked Bowling Green. Didn't think a lot of Bowling Green. As we learned this weekend, MAC teams are not to be messed with. If you're not playing up to your best, a MAC team can go in there and win against you, even if you're a top 10 team. So in the future, you're probably going to see these schools that are scheduling the MAC teams are going to have to look at these things, like what Bowling Green did to Penn State, Northern Illinois did to Notre Dame, and take notice and be prepared.
Yeah, we'll get to it in a minute, but I'm quite thankful that Washington did not overlook their MAC opponent. Moving on down, if you stayed up for this one with the Sickos Committee, this was your after dark game, because I think it finished even past midnight Pacific time. Utah State, the Fighting Aggies at USC, complete control by USC. Apologies for the noise. Complete control by USC. They had starters out just after halftime, and they just kind of rolled and ground the game. This is kind of what I envisioned from Ohio State, that game and going like. It was over early. They pulled the starters, and we're just bleeding clock at the end.
Yeah, and that's the right thing to do. You pull your starters, you get your second strings in there to get some reps. There's no reason to run your first string throughout an entire 4 quarters when you're up that much.
Yeah. Quick shout out to friend of the show. Just had a recent chat with Bomber, Amelia Islandol. Hello. And we appreciate everyone being here as always. We're just running through our game recap from Big Ten action over the weekend. This was a fun one. I had this one circled. I was only able to catch a small portion of it. But to me, this is a statement win by Illinois. They've been a bottom feeder in recent seasons, but they are looking to turn it around. And Kansas was one of those dark horse Big 12 contenders. And it was at home for Illinois, but being able to pull off that win, I think bodes really well for him. What do you think, Moen?
Yeah, it was a big fourth quarter for him. They ended up scoring 10 points in the fourth quarter and pulling away. Illinois' defense is much improved.
Yep.
I think you have to give Burt all the credit on that. The Fighting Burts did show up, and Burt can coach defense. And there was one in particular interception. It might have been a pick six I saw from Jaden Daniels. It was just a WTF pass, but Illinois was right there to pounce on it.
Yeah, we have quite a few Big 12 friends and especially Kansas State friends in chat who immediately posted, is this your Heisman contender? And he just threw it straight to the Illinois defender, and he was straight in. It was just a rookie mistake type pass. So, but good win by Illinois. They closed the deal. As you said, they scored late to put it away, but that can kind of push them into that middle section of the Big Ten where they're they're maybe not hanging out with the bottom feeders this year. And going from a good win against a Big 12 opponent in a positive light to the other end of the spectrum, we got the Cyhawk game. Break it down for me, Moen. Why do we have Jekyll and Hyde Iowa back?
This, I think we saw last week, was a mirage. Iowa's defense or Iowa's offense is not that good. They have a quarterback problem. I think they have a leadership problem. I think it's time for Kirk Ferentz to go. They need to replace him. I think it's passed him by. I will give credit to Iowa State.
Yep.
They had a terrific drives in the third and fourth quarter that led to points. Uncharacteristically, Iowa's defense slipped a little bit. There was one point where an Iowa State wide receiver got behind all 4 defensive backs on the field. So,
yep.
And he ran in for a touchdown. And that's not something you generally see from Iowa. They are very much a tough defense to get yards on, but Iowa State was able to get some yards on them. So, might be a long season for Iowa, especially with that offense not being nearly what we thought they were.
Yeah, someone kindly pointed out there is a 100% correlation between someone named Ferentz being on the sideline and Iowa's offense being terrible. And
I think it's time for Ferentz to go. I think
both of them.
Well, Brian Ferentz isn't there anymore. Brian Ferentz was a good O-line coach.
About that.
Just couldn't coach offense at all. He coaches O-line great.
Yeah.
But yeah, Kirk Ferentz, I think it's time for him to move on. He is a hero out there, a legend out there in Iowa country. Yep. But, sometimes you got to push those legends out the door.
Yeah, build a statue for him, give him the proper send-off, but bring in some fresh ideas and some fresh perspectives. Because if they can pull off a pseudo USC, like Bizarro World USC, where you bring in an offense to bolt to that good defense, that's a tricky team for anyone to play. I don't care who you are. Just a tiny bit of offensive competency, especially from the quarterback position, and Iowa would be a real contender in the Big Ten. Moving down, Moen, we got a touch of redemption. Minnesota did what you should do against FCS opponents and absolutely hammered them. I don't know if it totally redeems the bonehead play calling and execution from PJ Fleck, but, take what you can get, I suppose, for the Minnesota Golden Gophers.
Yeah, I mean, Brosmere looked a lot better. He threw for about 270 yards. They only played him in 3 quarters. The fourth quarter, they pulled him, and you still see they scored 17 points, after the fact. So Darius Taylor's back for them, which is a big component of their offense. We'll see how they bounce back against a tough opponent, though. They struggled and lost to North Carolina. They easily beat up on Rhode Island. They got some harder games coming up down the schedule. So we'll see if they're for real, if this comeback and this renaissance is real, or if it's just all a facade.
Yeah, I know they want to run the ball and be tough and play traditional Big Ten style, but Brosmere has shown, under the right circumstances, when you uncork him, he can still deliver the ball. So they got to mix a little bit more of that in. All right, this was a big one because is it Maugai? Am I pronouncing that name correctly? Running back for Rutgers. He's an absolute Mungai. My apologies. He is fantastic. All they want to do is hammer the ball, but even when Rutgers is coming, you can't stop him, and he's just going to scorch you for 200 yards and some touchdowns.
Yeah, Mungai might be the best running back in the Big Ten, and that is really saying something when you consider Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins, Donovan
Jonah
Edwards, Jonah Coleman, Darius Taylor.
They're it's a strong running back.
Everybody kind of took a dump on Athan Kaliak-Manis coming there. They've got him in more of a game manager role where he's making short passes. He's not deep balling it or anything like that, and he's letting the run game do what it needs to do. They looked really good against Akron, so they've looked good in both their games this season. So they've got a very soft schedule in the Big Ten.
Yep.
So these guys have a chance. I mean,
yep, they got I've been harping on it every week, obviously with my purple glasses on, but I really do think in 2 weeks from now, week 4, Washington's going to Rutgers. That'll be a really interesting game on both fronts. And heading into it, we have our first ever Big Ten conference game of the 18-team Big Ten. And I was able to watch the final drive. And for a freshman, Aiden Childs was poised. He had his bad moments during the game. But when he's got that clutch gene, I swear, where he just, when the lights are bright, he can execute. He's athletic. And he brought it home for Michigan State.
Yeah, this was easily the biggest surprise of the Big Ten slate. I mean, I think everybody had Michigan State written off this season. That they lost so much talent, so many transfers, no chance that Jonathan Smith was going to come in there and rebuild that program. Now, this was a close win, but Maryland's a good football team. Mike Locksley had a good football team out there, and boy, it's just. Michigan State, I put it in the description. It's not a typo. Michigan State is leading the Big Ten Conference right now.
Cool. Yeah. It's strange to see if you go into the Big Ten standings. There's certainly some oddities right now. Even if that changes, they like everybody else have tough schedules and tough matchups coming. But Jonathan Smith, he's always been a competent offensive coach. It was just, can he put together, a totally piecemeal roster, as you said, with massive turnover? But getting a road win at Maryland, I don't care, what kind of team you are, that's a big accomplishment for a brand new coach coming in. So expect them possibly to
Michigan. Good win for Michigan State. It's a right direction for that program. They're probably not going to have too many wins this season. I know they've got a rough schedule, but good for them to get one under their belt. Maryland, I think you're still trying to figure out what you're doing at quarterback here. You went from Tonga Vailoa, and you're kind of – there's a big hole to fill, and it's just – I think they're still working on it.
Yep. Many, including myself, had Michigan State fighting for the bottom of the conference with UCLA and others, but they might get a few more wins in there to push them into that middle tier. And moving on to a game that I watched every single snap of, as you must do in the Big Ten, you play a MAC opponent for your G5. So we scheduled the Eastern Michigan Eagles, and Huskies did well. Slow start, as you can see, 3-0, and everyone, some people are waving the arms in the air. But if you actually watch the game, it was just kind of Washington beating themselves, penalties, kind of dumb mistakes, a couple of drop passes. They absolutely caught their rhythm in the second quarter, and Will Rogers I think he's easily a top half of the conference quarterback and maybe even pushing into that top 5 territory in the Big Ten. He's an all-time SEC ranking passer. He can push the ball down the field. He's not Michael Penix. He's not throwing 40-yard bombs, but he can distribute the ball accurately, and that's kind of what you need. And Jonah Coleman has another 100-yard plus week in about 2 and a bit quarters of work. But Washington's got some weapons. They have offensive capability, as you would expect under Fish. And although they were only playing Weber State and Eastern Michigan, the Washington defense has yet to surrender a touchdown. That's pretty solid no matter who your opponent is.
There you go. And Washington has a big game this week. We'll talk about that here in a minute.
Absolutely.
Wisconsin, again, did not look fantastic against South Dakota. They had a couple rushing touchdowns in there, but they kind of took their foot off the gas at halftime, let South Dakota come back a little bit. Luke Fickell, they've got a huge game this week. And I don't know, or their next game's a huge game, but I don't know that, oh, man, Wisconsin, I've got Wisconsin ranked high in the conference. I really thought they would do much better than they have this season, and I'm hoping that maybe Fickell can figure something out before he plays Bama. I just don't want him to get embarrassed out there, but we'll see. Wisconsin, they picked up a win. They're still undefeated, but I would expect to see more from them at this stage with Luke Fickell as a head coach.
Do you think this was partially a case of, you got the big opponent looming next week, so they kind of took their eyes off the prize with South Dakota? They're looking past them a little?
I don't know. I think this is more of a situation where Fickle went in there, tried to install a new offense. He didn't have the kids for it. Now he's got some of the kids for it, but it's still not where it needs to be yet.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough to make a total, 180 spin in terms of your style of offense installing it. And as you said, you can only load up in the portal so much to turn on a dime. So he may have to make some adjustments and figure out how to address some strengths and weaknesses. This one was a lot of fun if you caught it, because everyone's favorite team to hate, the Colorado Fighting Buffaloes, they got pretty much embarrassed. The score won't show it, but Nebraska had it absolutely handled. Shadur Sanders was absolutely running for his life, and it's a miracle he's not in the hospital, but Nebraska handled him easily.
Yeah, it was. Speaking of loading up on the transfer portal, he have Colorado added 45 players through the transfer portal, and they still don't have a offensive line. And unfortunately, Shadur Sanders showed a little bit of his immaturity in his post-game conference.
Yeah.
You got to play with those guys the rest of the year, Shadur, and they might forget to make a block for you here and there if you keep talking to them like that. So, big win for Nebraska. A lot of people, me included, are asking, is Nebraska back? Are they finally back? We've had them in the conference for over 10 years now. Is this the Nebraska we thought we were getting?
I mean, they're certain trending up, and Raiola seems to be the real deal. I mean, Colorado's got athletes, despite what you may think of the team as a whole, but he was throwing against guys like Travis Hunter and getting the job done. I'm a little tired of the, baby Mahomes act already, but if he's slinging the ball and winning games, I mean, he can do whatever he wants.
Yeah, they've got some big games coming up on the schedule. All right, let's jump into week 2 here. We're gonna pull up the week 2 games.
Yep. Well, actually, we'll go ahead and do that. We can do the goofy stuff.
You can pull up your thing as well, and I can take this off stream for a minute. If you want to pull up your tier maker, up to you.
Yeah. So this is me only. I'm not. Moen doesn't speak for my terrible takes, but I created what I thought was a pretty solid tier list of team performances this week in the Big Ten. Obviously, Purdue and UCLA are not included because they did not have games. But overall, let's see, share tab here. There we go. I think we're in business. Nope. Apologies for the technical incompetence. There we are.
There you go.
So this is Pickle's Big Ten tier list rankings. In the Big W section, I have the Fighting Illini. Shout out to you in the chat there, Ted. I have Indiana, which Moen, in retrospect, you've talked me into it. They ran up the score. I just kind of look at it at face value because I did not watch this game. And I just think so many people had low expectations of Indiana this year. They're going to be a bottom feeder. They showed some offensive explosion. Regardless of opponent, you can put up 70. That bodes well. Nebraska, you get a big win over a traditional rival and kind of slaying the giant that is Colorado's college football playoff hopes. In the took care of business, it's all the teams kind of taking care of business, solid wins. Rutgers, Michigan State took care of business at Maryland, Ohio State, USC, Washington, Minnesota, all teams that should have won their game. The one exception is Michigan State. I think in retrospect, you could swap them with Indiana, who get the big W.
That's what I was going to say.
Yep. Sorry to steal your thunder on that, but in hindsight, I think that's a deserved placing. Reason for concern, we touched on it. Oregon, you got to show better than what you have. Penn State, come off the big West Virginia win and just almost laid an egg, but found a way to win. Wisconsin, for all the hopes and aspirations you have this year, you should be handling opponents more easily. And Maryland, losing at home to a Michigan State team that a lot of people had ranked very lowly. It's tough. I know that conference games are always tough, and it's kind of a crapshoot in these situations, especially early. But you had a chance to put that game away, and you let Aiden Childs get down the field on you. And then we have the defeat from the grasp of victory tier for Iowa. I almost wanted to call this the Iowa tier, but that felt unfair to Northwestern, who at least got to overtime and couldn't close the deal. And then Moen will take much satisfaction in the fact that Michigan gets their very own special tier called Did You Even Show Up? Because, of course, they did not.
Well, I might have to defend Michigan here a little bit. They did play against they played against Texas, which is probably you're looking at a competitor for the SEC championship right there. So
beating Texas isn't for everyone, Michigan. Sorry.
Yeah, I know you beat them last year. I know last year. This is this year.
2 years in a row we beat Texas.
Okay. This is this year, so
I
yeah.
know.
But Michigan does have issues. Yeah, they showed up. They just didn't show out.
They did. Yes.
We got a super chat here from Earl Carr. Moen on the Huskers, the jury is still out for me. Thank you for the super chat, Earl.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I Rock was getting on this last night. He hates to say teams are back. So I'm waiting to see more from Nebraska. Hopefully they don't beat Ohio State. That'd be a terrible way to find out they're back. But we also talked in the coming weeks, you could have Nebraska versus Illinois. Both those teams could be undefeated and ranked. That was a game that none of us had circled on the calendar to start the season. So should be some interesting matchups coming up in the Big Ten.
I think teams like that being ranked, some may poo-poo it, but I think it actually shows the depth of the conference that you have teams that are getting solid starts to their seasons. And ask Texas how many times they're back before it's true, because I think we can all say for sure this year Texas is back. They made the CFB last year. They are back. They are very good. Nebraska, you got to string a few wins together. And you don't necessarily have to win the conference to be back, but you got to be pushing the 9-10 win range, and that's going to be tough to do, but we will see. Nothing else on my tier list, Mo, and I know you poop. We got the Michigan State Indiana swap sorted out, but I think otherwise it's pretty solid list.
So we're going to take a look here at week 3 coming up. Of course, the big marquee matchup at noon on Fox. Alabama comes into Camp Randall. I think the spread right now is 16.5. So that's a big spread right now. I think that spread might get bigger. But Alabama did show they struggled a bit against USF. They did not really come alive till the fourth quarter. I know the score ended up being 42-16, but into the fourth quarter, that was a one-score game. So hopefully Wisconsin was paying attention, and if Wisconsin can pull this off, that'll be a signature win for that program and for Luke Fickell as the coach.
Yeah, absolutely. And not to, give you a pat on the head and say good job, but honestly, if they can keep this game close and keep it within a couple of scores, even in their fighting to the end, that's respectable. I mean, Alabama's very talented. I would love to talk badly about them because they have my former head coach, but they're very talented. It's not out of the realm of possibility Wisconsin can pull the upset, but we got to see a lot more than what they've been putting up the last couple of weeks. I will say real quick, it is a absolute travesty that this isn't College Game Day. Madison is one of the great environments that you could have someone, especially with a team like Alabama coming in. And they didn't pick the Civil War. They didn't pick the Apple Cup. Okay, whatever. But Wisconsin hosting Bama, and you choose South Carolina LSU. Sure. Not biased at all there, ESPN. Go ahead and show your hand a little bit.
Well,
whatever.
They did go to the big house this weekend for College Game Day, but I think they didn't want to be sucking, as we call here in Ohio, sucking hind teat off of Fox 2 weeks in a row. Because Fox is going to be there for Big Noon.
Yep. Real quick, Timothy Green has to leave for a doctor's appointment. Just wanted to say peace out to my friend. Take care of yourself, and absolutely catch up on the show later on. You're always a regular guest. We appreciate you having you here.
Yep. Good luck tomorrow, Timothy.
Good luck to you. All right.
Next game up, Michigan gets a bounce-back game against Arkansas State, who is 2-0. Yep, we saw Michigan struggle against Fresno State. Do they bounce back this week?
One would hope. I'm not sure who they have going into their Big Ten schedule. They may have do they have a bye in week 4? We'd have to look that up. But this is a gate right game, and if they're still showing signs of, struggling and the slowness that they showed against Fresno and then just getting dominated by Texas, it's tough. They have to put together a convincing, strong performance. Starters are out in third quarter. That's the type of game you need to have as Michigan.
Yeah, their next game after this is USC.
That's tough. And I believe, are they going to the Coliseum?
No, the USC plays them in Ann Arbor this year.
Okay, that'll be certainly a very interesting one. But let's hope they're not overlooking Arkansas State with USC coming in then.
Right on. Next one up is Central Michigan, of Connor Stalions fame, versus Illinois.
Yep, you're on the verge of being ranked, Illini. Don't ruin it now. Take care of business. 3-0 going into conference play. Illini, Ted, I'm rooting for you. Yeah, game day has never been to Champaign. You can get yourself ranked this year, and who knows if you're both undefeated. Illinois, Nebraska. Never say never.
Yeah, I don't know what other games are on the schedule for that week, but I would imagine that might be if they're both undefeated, that could be the first time College game day comes there. And if not, probably Big Noon Kickoff will be there. So,
yep.
And it's a better show than game day anyway.
Your destiny is in your own hands, Illinois.
After that, we have the uncivil war, civil war, whatever you want to call it, the rumble in the Pacific Northwest. Who's got the better weed? Oregon versus Oregon State.
Yeah, they're only about 30 miles apart. They're all going to the same dispensaries.
Yeah, listen, Oregon, you better get your head and your ass wired together, or Oregon State is going to take a giant shit on you. You cannot overlook this game. Oregon State has some players on that team, and believe me, they have something to prove against the teams that abandoned them in the pack.
Yep.
So you better be ready. You better have all your plays figured out. You better be drilling those players this week. Dylan Gabriel better get his shit together because Oregon State's come to play. So, no joke. Get it figured out. I would not. I imagine the spread on this game is probably going to be like maybe 6.5, 7.5. Oregon.
I believe I saw double digits at one point. That may have been before the Oregon-Boise game, though.
Okay. Yeah, so I think this is a tough out for Oregon.
Yep.
We've seen them teeter on the edge of defeat the last 2 weeks. If they don't have it together, this will be the week that they fall over the edge.
Yeah, Lanning, I mean, it was with Jonathan Smith, granted, but Lanning is 1-1 against the Beavs, so he has tasted defeat in Corvallis before, and they are headed there again. That crowd is going to be absolutely ballistic, calling for blood from the Oregon sideline. And, yeah, I mean, the full credit, the only undefeated conference is the Pac-12, the Conference of Champions at 4-0. But this is their Super Bowl. I hate to say that and use the cliche, yes, but this is the biggest game on both Wazoo and Oregon State's schedule. They would love nothing more than to put their rivals in the dirt.
Yeah, is this game on CW this week? It's on Fox. Okay,
it is on Fox.
After that, you've got the Notre Dame Fighting Irish coming off a huge loss to Northern Illinois, playing one of their many rivals in the Big Ten. They have more rivals in the Big Ten than any other conference. Purdue Boilermakers. This is at Ross-Ade Stadium. This is a 3:30 game. Do we think Notre Dame bounces back?
I don't know, admittedly, enough about Purdue's roster to have a strong indication of how they're going to perform. But Notre Dame's beatable. They are. They turned back into a pumpkin already. That doesn't mean they're not going to rattle off 7, 8, 9 wins. But everyone said, oh, contender. They're fighting for that 5 spot in the CFB, the highest they can go. And NIU just absolutely blew that out of the water. I'm firing up the spoiler maker hype train, Mo, and I'm all on board that thing. I know you probably are too.
I want to see it. If Purdue beats Notre Dame this weekend, South Bend goes unglued. It's going to be raining cats and dogs.
Yeah.
Freeman they'll bring Arreo into the athletic center for Freeman. It's not going to be a good time in South Bend. So go Boilermakers, boil up, do what you got to
Absolutely.
do. Then Michigan State has another very winnable game against Prairie View A&M.
Yep. Big win at Maryland. Don't take your foot off the gas. Take care of business at home and, be able to pull those guys in the second half of the game, rest them up going into more conference play. But Michigan State, don't have a letdown. This is where you don't want to have that letdown where you're doing like some other teams have and flirting with disaster against an FCS opponent.
Amelia Island says, loved watching Notre Dame lose. That was a lovely highlight to the weekend. Yes. I got to watch Michigan lose. I got to watch Notre Dame lose. I stayed up late to see if Oregon would lose. I was hoping to get the trifecta of my hated teams out there, but hey, I'm happy I settled with Michigan losing and Notre Dame losing. Oregon was kind of on the back burner, so maybe
2-1 ain't bad.
This week I get a root for Oregon to lose. But if Notre Dame loses this week, I am going to be unhinged on Twitter, unleashed. Tune in. I will have lots to say. I will be doing grave dancing like Michael Flatley, the river dance, all over Notre Dame.
Respectfully requesting an immediate post-game Moen rants after that.
Yes. We will do Saturday Mafia Live where I will talk about that. Prairie View A&M, Michigan State. This is an easy one, I think, for Michigan State. They'll start the season 3-0. Could that lead to more? We will see.
Man.
Then we're moving on to Nevada versus Minnesota. Nevada looked good in their one game against SMU, but they've kind of fallen off since. So Minnesota's favored by 16.5, but the total on the game is only 43.5.
Yeah, Minnesota's not a bad team by G5 standards, so Minnesota can't just completely take them lightly, but I want to see week 2 PJ Fleck in this offense. I don't want to see week 1 PJ Fleck because that'll just, even if you get the win, it'll just be terrible to watch.
Yeah, you're not gonna change PJ Fleck, so it's gonna be run pass.
It looks so good this week though, Moen. He actually threw the ball on first and second sometimes.
Yeah, he did that against Rhode Island. I think with Taylor getting another week under his belt healthy, I think they'll probably run.
Dang it.
Here we go, 3:30 on Peacock. Apple Cup, Washington State, Washington. This one is at Seattle. You get the home field advantage.
Sort of.
But Washington State looked good this week. I know they played Texas Tech, and we've kind of all overrated Texas Tech. But Washington State's coming in here 2-0. And they've got an apple core to pick with you. So tell us about it.
We've been hearing all about it. I mean, there's been a kind of a melancholy amongst a lot of fans, both Coug and Husky, that it's not Thanksgiving. It's not cold out. I'm still sitting in my backyard and there's some sunshine, but it's Apple Cup week. And it doesn't feel like it has the zing that it should. And that's kind of a bummer, but I feel like right as we get up to game time, the energy is going to be there. We know Coug fans are calling for blood. This is at the Seahawks Stadium. This is at Lumen Field, so it is a neutral site game. There's been a lot of trash talking because Wazoo did not sell out their allotment, and now it's being offered to Husky fans and general people that want to go to the game. If you're the Pac-2, Wazoo, this isn't even just trolling. Do better. You're supposed to be the Pac-2. You hate us and everything. Tons of your alumni and fans live in Seattle. It's the most populated region of the state, and you can't sell out your allotment. Do better, Wazoo. But they put up 70 week 1, and they handed it to Texas Tech. I mean, although you might think Texas Tech isn't going to do very well in the Big 12, that's a power opponent. That's a win over a power opponent, and you put them away easily. They can score on anybody. And although I like Washington's defense, they are going to be tested. The first 2 opponents for Washington really weren't able to throw the ball down the field. Wazoo's going to do that. So rivalry games, as you say, I feel like the Civil War and Apple Cup to me are in that same vein as Cyhawk. Toss records out. Toss what you think the perception is, because any team can win depending on how the game goes. But it'll be a fun one. I know it's on Peacock, but people, if you want to see some real hatred football, the Civil War and Apple Cup are absolutely worth viewing.
Yeah, I will say this for it. It sucks that it's not an end of year rivalry anymore.
Yep.
But at least the rivalry's been protected somewhat. It's an out of conference game early in the season, much like the Cy-Hawk Trophy. So I'm glad it's protected. It should be a hell of a game. We got a super chat here from Earl Carr. Says, Moan, if the Irish lose, there might be riots in South Bend, and Freeman could be fired by Monday. Yeah, it occurred to me this week, Freeman was hired by Jack Swarbrick. They've got the new AD in there. He has no, this isn't his hire. So he could very well push Freeman out at the end of this season and bring in his own hire. The question is, who do they hire? I kind of proposed it to Rock and Rant last night. Like, if Urban Meyer was available, I said he wanted to come to Notre Dame. He's had it listed as a dream job before. It was in his contract at Utah. Utah, I believe that he could leave free of charge to go to Notre Dame. So I'm not saying that's going to happen, but they have to start figuring something out because Marcus Freeman is not the guy.
No.
I understand at the time they couldn't get Luke Fickell, who was their preferred candidate, because Luke Fickell wouldn't take the job over his former defensive coordinator. Luke Fickell is just a stand-up guy like that. But Freeman is not the guy. And I know he converted to Catholicism and had all his kids, in the Catholic Church, but no, he's not the dude. He's not the dude to coach Notre Dame. So
yeah.
I don't think he'll be fired by Monday, but I think by the end of the season he'll be fired. Unless they win a playoff game.
If he racks up a couple
They'll beat USC. If they beat USC, I think they get a redemption arc.
Yeah. He racks up a couple more losses against non-top teams. If he starts losing to the Boston Colleges of the world, he won't make it to see USC.
If they lose to Purdue this week, it's going to be. I can't see him fire. They might fire him and put Golden in there. They might just say, Golden, you're the interim coach. But we've seen from Al Golden's head coaching experience, he's not much better. So thank you for the super chat, Earl. It's much appreciated. Helps us keep the lights on here.
Yep, absolutely. And remains to be seen, but go Boilermakers. Have a good week, and that give us more fun things to chat about with Notre Dame.
All right, we've got Troy going to Iowa City to play Iowa. This is a bounce-back game, obviously, for Iowa. Troy has 0 wins on it. Iowa, you got to score more than 23 points to cover the spread, and I think you need to score probably 35 to 40 points to get that taste out of your mouth from the Cy-Hawk game.
It's kind of one of those fool me once things with Iowa. I'm smashing the under. They'll win. It'll look terrible. Man, as long as Kirk Ferentz is on the sideline, I'm not going to fall for the mirage again. I'm just going to keep hitting the under with Iowa. And unfortunately, as you said, it looks like their defense may be a tick lower than they were last year. That does not bode well going into some tough games down the road.
Good news is Troy is awful. So Iowa, there's absolutely no reason Iowa should lose this game.
Yeah.
But Iowa, it's like Jurassic Park. Iowa finds a way. Another team from Iowa, Northern Iowa, playing Nebraska and Lincoln this week. Nebraska coming off the big win. Do they have an emotional letdown?
I could see him score it being a little slower, maybe slow out of the blocks, but Nebraska's got talent. Rayola will play well. I don't know, admittedly, I don't know anything about Northern Iowa, if they're doing well or not. They're 2-0 right now, so they're not terrible, but Nebraska should put them away.
I agree. I think Nebraska wins that game easily. Rayola gets some quality reps in there, gets a little better. He had a couple passes that were a little iffy on that Nebraska-Colorado game. Then we've got on Peacock at 7:30, Indiana versus UCLA. UCLA has not played since that Hawaii game 2 weeks ago.
Oh, I love the basketball here. It's my favorite. Man, I don't even know what to make of this because Kurt Signetti might be able to run the score up on UCLA, but UCLA's got talent. They've always got talent, but losing their DC it was just a death blow to them. They lost some talent to the NFL also, but I don't know if Garbers is the dude. He can make the passes. He's just super inconsistent. He was originally a Washington commit, so I got to see him for a little bit before he transferred to UCLA. He has the ability. He has the stature. If you built a quarterback in a lab, that's what he'd look like, but he's so inconsistent. And without the defense to kind of make up for some of those mistakes, like those errant interceptions, I think Indiana, it might be bad. They might be able to actually score on them and score easily.
Yeah, I think I'm going to take Indiana in this game. The spread is only 3 favoring Indiana.
Oh, take Indiana all day.
I think that's a steal to take Indiana at that spread.
I mean, you get a full touchdown on them, easy. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, UCLA struggled against Hawaii. They've had 2 weeks off. I don't know that there was enough you could do in 2 weeks to make that team beat Indiana. But we'll see. We'll see. Eastern Illinois at Northwestern. Northwestern gets a chance to bounce back. Hopefully they do. If they get on 3rd and short, maybe don't run a quarterback sweep.
Yeah. Man, their offensive play calling is so frustrating. I don't know what to make of it. They want to be, the pound the rock run team, but then they do really goofy, weird swing passes and just kind of baffling stuff. So I expect that game to be kind of a slog. I don't know what the total is, but I'm so tempted to just smash the over and let it go, or smash the under rather and let it go.
Yeah, you came up with a great point. He thinks, and I think I agree with him, these elite academic schools, sometimes they try and overthink the plays, and they'll just call wacky plays at the absolute wrong time to do it to try and make themselves look smart. I don't know.
I mean, that kind of holds true for watching Duke and Northwestern in that game. There were some baffling decisions by both sides.
And then we've got the battle for D.C. ending out the week. Maryland against Virginia in Charlottesville. Virginia undefeated. Maryland coming off that hard loss against Michigan State. Do the Terrapins bounce back?
I think they do. From everything I've seen, Virginia is kind of expected to be certainly in that lower tier. It is a road game. It's tough to play anywhere, especially against a old ACC foe. But yeah, Maryland's still got weapons. They've still got offense. I don't know if I'd let Brian Friends, as you said, do anything other than coaching the offensive line. But Maryland was, for quite a bit of that game against Michigan State, they looked competent enough to move the ball and score. I don't know why they couldn't seal the deal at the end there.
Yeah, I haven't seen enough of Virginia this year, but Virginia is generally not a power in the ACC, generally towards the bottom. Maryland needs to win this one for the Big Ten. They need to get that one back for us that Northwestern let slip through their fingers. Get a win over the ACC team. So go Terps.
Go Terps.
And that's the slate of games for this week.
Yep. I would say the highlights to me, obviously, Civil War Apple Cup, selfishly, just Pacific Northwest. But I'd encourage any Big Ten fans, find those games, get a little bit of the West Coast football flavor. And any rivalry game, in my opinion, is fun to watch. Any historic rivalry. And both the Civil War and Apple Cup have been played over 100 times. So these are historic rivalries.
Yeah, it should be an interesting week. If you have YouTube TV, you can actually tell it to record certain games. That's how I catch up on all the Big Ten action. The only game I really didn't sit through was the Michigan State-Maryland one. I saw the highlights. But, yeah, good way to watch your Big Ten football. Have it all saved for you. You can watch it the next day. You can go back and enjoy the thrill of victory. Or you can watch a Northwestern game and just keep scratching your head and try and figure out why they called that play.
Yeah, I'm just going to default to Utes. They overthought it. They Northwesterned it, whatever adjective you want to have there.
Must be.
Moen, you got anything? We're a little bit of a shorter show today, but Becky wasn't able to join us. We got through the recap, got through the preview, and programming note, the aforementioned Sergeant Pickles will be gone the next 3 weeks. I'm taking my family on a good old-fashioned family road trip of the West. I might be able to pop in from time to time, but service can be a little spotty in the wilds of Utah. So Moen and Becky will be holding it down for me, and I appreciate them. A lot of good football coming up. I'm sad to miss some of those games, but what's your one for the road, Moen, as we go into week 3 on the precipice of conference play?
Yeah, I just want to say a programming note. We're going to try and have, with Pickles out, we're going to try and have some special guests on. Probably have Immaculate on to talk a little Hawkeyes football, get his perspective on things. Working on getting Greg Flugar on the show to talk some Minnesota football, get his perspective on Big Ten football things. So to have those to look forward to. My one for the road is Michigan lost, but don't count Michigan out. Do not overlook Michigan. That is rat poison. I'm telling you right now. Ohio State, don't overlook Michigan. Don't think they're done. Don't think this is over. You need to prepare for that game. You got to get past some tough teams this year. You got Nebraska. You got Oregon. You got some tough teams, but do not sleep on Michigan. Michigan can turn it around. Don't sleep on Michigan.
I'm certainly not sleeping on them at all. They come week 6. They come up to Seattle. We're going to want a little bit of revenge. So I've got that game circled, and I know Michigan's certainly going to want to put us away a second time. But yeah, we appreciate everyone stopping by. I'm thankful that the show will be in good hands in my absence, and unfortunately that you're bringing on guys that are smart and actually know football, so I'll look like an absolute idiot when I get back. But that's okay, because I love being here and chatting with everybody. My one for the road, easy. Go Dogs. It's Apple Cup week. You got to put little brother back in his place. And I know that Oregon is the one that we circle because we've had the clash of the Titans in the recent years, but we see the Cougars going by every day in our workplace and in state, and it's always fun to hang that over them for another year. So go Dogs. We appreciate everyone being here.
Go Big
Ten.
Ten.
Big Ten Mafia show, and go Big Ten. We will see you all, if I can get to the right page. We will see you all next week. Thank you for being here, and peace out, everybody.